Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome back to Victoria 3 for another user interface tutorial. In these little deeper dives, we are focusing on the 5 large user interface buttons on the top part of the left-hand panel. We have gone over our military, we have gone over the market without doing separate guides on how they operate. And we're now into buildings. And if you thought market was a little bit confusing, you may get a little bit lost in buildings, but don't worry about it. We'll be okay. We'll make it through, believe me, because hopefully I will explain things in very knowledgeable manner. So let's get into it. Right here, when you first click on buildings, you'll notice a few things. One, you have your construction resource availability, which right now is only at 21. It's not a lot. And note that your construction resource, which is made solely more available by construction sectors, it is only activated when you are actively building something, building a building. So keep that in mind across all the boards. Second, you'll notice that there are several tabs: urban, rural development, and construction. Urban is your city structures, your industries, your government buildings, your education related things. Your rural is things like your mines, your farms, your plantations, your fishing wharves, and of course, any of these potentials there. Your development is limited strictly to your barracks, your military, and your ports, as well as potential buildings like the Suez and Panama Canal, and of course, railways once you unlock it, which is crucial for infrastructure. Ports and railways are the only ways to increase infrastructure, so keep that in your noggin. And then last is construction. This is sort of a half tab because it only operates again when you're actually building something. The more construction sectors you have, the more construction resource you are able to utilize. Although, as I will always mention, a quick caveat is that there is only a certain amount of construction that can be contributed towards a single building at any given time. That number when it's max is, I believe, 19.8. So if you have 21 construction and you have 2 buildings in your queue, 19.8 of that will be going towards one building, and what is that? 1.2 will be going towards the other one. Now, it may seem a little bit weird or off considering that maybe you think you should be able to devote all of your construction resource into anything at any given time. I can tell you that that just doesn't work, because when have you ever had more people thrown at a job and it actually got done quicker? Cody Bonds told me that. Bonsai, go look him up on YouTube. He's a great guy. He made that good point, and considering that I work in the construction industry for real, it all makes sense. So now what you can do is you can build more sectors, but I will say this: anything that you do build does have a construction amount. You can see here, Bohemia, if we expanded food industries, and this is just food industries in general, it will cost you 450 construction. And so if we were to build that, you would see, one, that our temporary expenses kick in from our building, but also I am not incredibly efficient as much as I could be. So I'm only having 17.9. If I were to go and build another building, let's just build a textile mill. I will build it in Bohemia, why not? This is a prime example. I have 17.9 going towards the food industries. That's the most I can have right now. The remainder 3, it's rounding in funky ways, goes towards that textile mill. Does that make sense? So even though I have the capability of pumping 21, it just doesn't work. And that also gives me the number of weeks that I have left. So keep that in mind when building. You'll have a construction queue, and as long as you have a queue and you haven't paused construction, you will have that temporary expense. And that temporary expense will go away as soon as you're done, and you can even see here how much you're making once that temporary expense is gone. Back to the buildings themselves. Every building has a wild range of information. Over here, you have how many you actually have in all of your country. We currently have 11, with 1 being built right now. That's the number of food industries. If we hover over the food industries, we get an overview based on the current production methods of what it costs to input goods and what we get out of it. So right here, it requires the manufacturer's technology. We have that. It produces 60 liquor and 15 groceries per level. We have 11 food industries. So we're making 660 liquor, and we're making, oh goodness, what is that? 165 groceries per week, I do believe is what it's on a scale of. However, it consumes 40 grain per level and 25 sugar per level, meaning that we are consuming 440 grain and we are consuming 275, quick math, sugar overall, which will bump up as soon as that gets built. The same goes for employment. We have 4,500 laborers, 250 machinists, and 600 shopkeepers per level. Same goes for urbanization. Urbanization is how well developed a state is, which influences what the capabilities are for your urban center to upgrade and therefore be productive and produce services. Also, it uses infrastructure. That's important. Remember, or if you watch the market video, I highly recommend you do. Infrastructure involves your market access. If you go over your infrastructure usage, you will not have full access to your market, which means your goods are not coming in as much as they could be, nor are they going out as much as they could be. That's very important. And again, ports and railroads are the only things to bump that up. And then of course, you have your throughput, which is essentially how effective the workforce is. You can see here it's capped at level 21. So if I were to build 25 food industries across my campaign, right now, I would only be able to take advantage of the throughput of 21 of them. Again, their construction costs, and then 11 levels of food industry currently, and their productivity of how economically valued they are is at 10.5 to 10.7. Now, that's one part of this one single building in this one single industry. You can see that right there. That's good. That gives you your productivity. These buttons are all very, very crucial, and they all have very, very outstanding and positive ways, or negative, depending on how you want to use them. These are your production methods. All of these are production methods for the food industries. Now we can switch the base production method. All pretty much have a base, I think, and then a luxury production and automated, and then in some cases, a couple of automations. It's all different. We can see here all the different ways. But here we go. We can modify. Currently we have bakeries, which produces 495 total. It's consuming 440. If we were to move to sweeteners, it would produce 220 more across all the states, but it also consumes more sugar, increases the employment of machinists, but fires 5,500 laborers. Now, I will say the substitution price is a little bit off until you can really understand the economic value. For instance, if I had sugar that wasn't being utilized, if I was overproducing sugar, yes, switching to that production method would cause the game to think, oh, you're going to lose money. But that is until you get employed. So it's a little bit off. I wouldn't take this super seriously. But you do at the same time also want to consider it. What's more important here, though, is the changes in production that causes. And this is also contributing to the substitution. Right now, people are paying 41.5 gold for groceries inside of our market. With this new production method and injecting 220 more groceries, that knocks the price down to 7.5. That's a very massive drop. Now, that will cause you to lose a little bit of money, yes, because sugar skyrockets. Sugar right now is only 26.5, but if we were to introduce sweeteners, it would bump up to 52.5. Now you can counter this, and this is why I say substitution isn't directly true, because all I would have to do to limit that is either import more sugar or find a way to develop more sugar, and that price would go right back down. The benefit of increasing groceries that much and dropping that level is that your pops need groceries to survive. And by dropping that down, it would increase their standard of living. I would definitely do this and just figure out how to make grocery sugar a little bit cheaper. So that's your base. Every single one of these has a different method that you can do based on, I do believe, even laws on top of technology. So we could get canneries, which would basically increase the groceries by a lot, but requires an input of iron and fish. And then vacuum canning requires oil, iron, grain, and fish. and doesn't really give us a ton more groceries. And you can see it would cost a heck of a lot to do that. That wouldn't be very smart. So you can go through each of these individual ones, and I highly recommend you take a look at them and figure out what is best for your country and what you can do based on your market supply. The last ones are here are, automation. In the rural ones, we'll see some different formats, but then ownership. Right now, the Merchants Guild owns this. If we were to enact sweeteners or baking powder, we could do privately owned, in which case more capitalists would get in. Public traded, more capitalists, and even less shopkeepers. So the benefit here is that you can affect the political clout of your people depending on who owns it. We're not going to get into that super deep, but no, that's what it's there for. The second part to this, well, the second of many parts, this button allows you to automatically expand. You saw me click on that earlier. It gives me the ability to expand and will let me know what regions are available to it. You see this in the production lens too, where you can build. If you were to click on this, we would be able to influence everything. All right, I'm going to go back to food industries. This right here is subsidies. So if, for instance, your food industries was having a hard time keeping people employed, and especially in Danubia, I could subsidize it, meaning that I, the government, will take on the negative balance of what it takes to keep this industry operational so that we can keep more people fully employed and get groceries and liquor out the door. This can get very expensive, but it is very, very beneficial because it allows your pops to stay hired. A fired pop will typically turn radical, just FYI. But on top of that, it will allow you to just simply input goods which would keep their costs managed, but also just allows the government to say, hey, we're here for you. It generally will make people happy. Again, you can go wild with this. Be careful, because if something is hemorrhaging too much because of a kink in the production methods or in the resource production, then you could be looking at paying $30,000, $40,000 in subsidies, which just isn't very reliable. And then last but not least, in this first part right here is automatic expansion. If we were to do that, let's go into here. Auto expansion has a very interesting conditions. So you can have an industry or any building automatically expand if certain conditions are met. In this case, the cash reserves of the food industries are greater than 90%. We'll go into this in just a minute. Market access is greater than 50, and the duration of Austrian construction queues is less than 26 weeks. We don't meet that last one. So I couldn't auto expand even if I wanted to. Now, what's really cool is what I did to get to these individual ones. Changing this will modify the production method of every single food industry across your entire country. But there are some definite cases. They're a little bit more rare, and it requires a little more micro, a little more min-maxing, if you want to put it that way. But you can modify the production methods of individual state food industries. So you can see here, we have two in Danubia. If we were to only have these guys go to sweeteners, then we would make a little more money than if we did everyone. Okay? This is only useful if you have a production method. This is what I pretty much only use it for, actually for wood. This is a big one for wood, because with wood, we're gonna go over here to your rural, I passed it. Wood can prioritize softwood or hardwood. You need hardwood for a lot of things, but you need softwood for just as many. So what I typically like to do is if I see a need for either one of those, I will go into their respective areas and I will switch priorities. So what we could do is you could simply start and have everyone go to sawmills. You can see it will make 540 more wood, which would be great. It consumes more tools, but that's okay. And that might solve my deficit problem. But if I saw a huge deficit of softwood, then I would change a production method or increase the number of logging camps in an area that would produce more softwood, do the same thing for hardwood. But this is very, very cool because it allows you to prioritize based on individual industries in individual states. Now, we can do this for all this. I'm not going to go through all these. That's pretty cut and dry. I will say down here at the bottom of every section, gives you things that you can potentially build. It's grayed out if you don't have the ability to do it, or if you don't have anywhere where it can be done based on certain criteria. But for instance, I could build motor industries in any of my cities. That's not going to be the same for your rural. Rural is very, very limited in what is capable. And you can see here we have all sorts of different production methods. You've kind of got the idea of what production methods do by now, hopefully. But here is where you can see everything. So for instance, rice farms. I can't build rice farms anywhere because there are no rice farms in Austria. I can build sulfur mines. I haven't built them yet, but I can. And as soon as I build them, they will come off the potential buildings and go into this section, right? So for instance, if you wanted to say, hey, I really need some tobacco, but I can't build it, you're going to have to find a place on the map that allows you to see where tobacco is being made. Now, what we need to do next is we're going to take a look at buildings and we're going to take a look at rye farms. Or no, we're going to go into an industrial. We're going to go into an industrial because this gives you a good breakdown. So this gives you a lot of modifiers and a lot of good information on everything that you have within a certain industry. Now, this is the building in Transdanubia. So you can't see this breakdown across all of your systems. This is broken down by individual states. For one, you see how many there are. You see their productivity. You see where they are in food industries in general, but also in the world. This is the best place to be making food. You also see the average wage. Now, this is important because if you have a higher average wage in Transdanubia than you do in Moravia, your laborers may just leave Moravia and migrate over to Transdanubia if there is employment opportunities available for it. And of course, the higher wages you have, the faster that employment opportunity is going to get filled. So just keep that in mind. All right, this is everyone who is employed inside of the food industries in Transdanubia. All of them are South German Catholic. They are a range of shopkeepers, machinists, laborers, and capitalists. The latest employees changes is that we hired 200 capitalists who were previously unemployed. We've also seen how 1,000 laborers became machinists thanks to qualifications, and 1,000 shopkeepers became laborers. Now, we couldn't hire laborers due to the fact that laborers weren't willing to work for 6.42. They would accept, the machinists with qualifying 500 laborers weren't willing to work for 6.42. They would accept a wage of 10.59. So that's interesting because it basically says, hey, if you had had a higher wage, we would have had more laborers, or we would have had machinists move down to laborers, but that didn't happen. So unfortunately, you cannot yourself determine the annual wage. That wage is determined on market competition. So that's something, it's unfortunate, but it's what you kind of have to deal with. Now, cash reserves. If you are making a positive weekly income, the people who have bought your building, because this is the public sector, will pump money into their cash reserves. This is specifically designed so that if a bad economic week happens and your weekly balance goes into the negative, they don't have to fire people. This cash reserve will go down if they are making a negative balance. It will go up if they have a positive balance, but of course it does cap out. Cash reserves are not the same thing as your investment pool. I want to make that clear. Your investment pool is your capitalists and your upper strata investing in the potential hope of being able to build things using their money. Cash reserves are, again, a bad week economically, or a lot of people got fired for some reason. Now, once those cash reserves are depleted, that is when people get fired and you'll start seeing vacancies open up. But know that this is a good thing, and this is one of the requirements. Cash reserves is greater than 95% for auto expansion. Again, you have your production methods, as we explained, and your subsidies of that individual industry and that individual state. But down here below, we have our process. Your process is your inputs and your outputs, plain and simple. This is your input. We are currently importing, whether that is domestic or internationally, we are importing 80 sugar and 80 wheat for 2.3K and 1.7K total. If we are able to bring that price down, which I don't really think we would, then we would be able to save even more money. And then the total wages of what it costs for all of your people. So total overall, we are making 1.46 plus 1.7 plus 2.3. Those are our costs to have everyone employed and have everything at the moment. And it's currently using 4 infrastructure. The output is your total balance. So we are outputting 121 liquor a week and 70 groceries a week. And that is giving us a balance of 3.9 plus 2.4. I don't know what all that means, but you know what I do know. It gives me a weekly total, there we go, of 948. This is profitable. Your ownership shares dividends, this is great. That means they're making $711 across the board. This is the source of pop income. And this is the investment pool. They are doing so well that the owners of this building are going to pump, once I'm done building, they are going to pump $237 into here. That's great. And then urbanization. Urbanization is required to upgrade your trade centers, which will increase your service. Your workforce is exactly that. It breaks down everyone who is employed, their standard of living, the capitalists, shopkeepers, their standard of living, all of that stuff. It also, if you hover over them, over the profession, you'll see a breakdown of their modifiers. And then the food industries themselves, they have modifiers here. We are getting inputs and outputs. The mortality rate from dangerous working conditions, so constantly bringing in people. We have a 1% throughput, and then we have certain capitalists and laborers, etc. per level. This will be the same across every single industry, every single building, regardless of what you are thinking of. This all operates in the same manner. The only exception is that like your military development is always going to be consuming because they actually don't produce anything that makes you money. So, ladies and gentlemen, that in a very, very broad yet very long, extensive nutshell gives you an overlook, zoomed all the way off, of how your systems operate. I hope you understand this buildings a little bit better and how you can utilize them, how you can break them down, how you can affect them, and the methods that go in to producing a positive, booming industrial, rural, or developmental centers. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you appreciate it. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on bell notifications, but more importantly to me, all those interactions are great, but I think comments go so much more, including sharing. So find your friends, find people who are confused, post these videos on Reddit. I do care. It would be very appreciated. But guys, thank you for tuning in. We're going to check out your budget. And we're going to check out government as well. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.